They were erased from history, branded as mistakes, and buried in silence. But 10 years later, the shadows returned, not for glory, but for truth. They don't seek revenge. They're here to remind us what humanity paid for peace. Every name on their armor isn't a victory. It's someone we forgot. Now they move not by orders, but by memory. Want to know how their story ends? Subscribe, and don't miss what comes next. The stench of burnt ozone and blood clung to the corridors of the ruined research station, thick and acrid, like war-made flesh. Alien soldiers moved between the wreckage, laughing in a language that cut the air like razors on glass, sharp, metallic, and inhuman. They stepped over broken walls and shattered bodies with casual cruelty, their weapons relaxed at their sides, as if no threat could possibly remain in this place. Inside what used to be command control, the heart of the human base, 3 of them stood near the central console. One prodded the remains of a mangled soldier with the edge of his boot, tilting his scaled head as if puzzled by the fragility of what he saw. Legends, he rasped through a translator note. The humans love their little stories. Heroes, gods, invincible soldiers, lies. Another, broader and clad in dark armor like black and chrome, picked up a blood-slicked data slate and flicked it to life. A hologram burst from the surface, a reel of faces and names, some historical, some whispered in myths. Captain Sienna Cortez, who'd held Mars' northern trench lines alone for 6 days against 10,000 autonomous enemy bots. The ghost of Tokyo, a cyber assassin who vanished midair after taking down a Dominion prime minister. And at the base of it all, the shadowed outline of Project Revenant. That's the one they keep referencing, the dark-armored alien murmured. Black Ops. Vanished 10 Earth years ago. Legends, the first one repeated with disdain. Their stories end here. But then, from the shadows of the shattered command room, something moved. A cough, wet, painful, broke the illusion of death. All heads turned. Near the server stacks, beneath a cracked steel beam, a human lay half-crushed and bloodied, uniform scorched, his chest barely rising. One of the smaller aliens stepped forward, weapon primed. Survivor. Terminate. The scaled leader raised a clawed hand. No. Wait. He approached, crouching near the wounded man. His scanner chirped quietly. Vitals failing. Barely alive. He tilted his head, curious. What were you guarding here, human? What was so important? The soldier's lips moved. No sound. Then again. A breath, shallow. You think it's over. The alien's brow ridges shifted. It is. Your species is finished. Your stories. They're real. The man's voice cracked like brittle glass. The aliens laughed. Loud, brutal. Revenants, scoffed one. Ghost tales told in human barracks. Boogeymen for recruits. They're not gone, the human whispered. His nameplate, though charred, still bore partial letters, J-Ax. The scaled leader leaned in. You should rest, human. You'll see your myths in whatever afterlife your kind believes in. Jack smiled. It was weak, broken, but something about it silenced the room. There was no fear in it. No desperation. Only a whisper. You should have left us alone. The lights flickered. Emergency strobes, once red, flashed to blue. A hum began. Mechanical. Rhythmic. Like something deep beneath the base had awakened. What is that? The commander barked. Jax closed his eyes. His final breath left him in silence. They're here. Then the lights went out. And the screaming began. Not just darkness. A void. Alien optics, tuned for multispectral combat, saw nothing. Even infrared went dead. In the pitch black, something moved. Fast. Silent. Wrong. The youngest soldier, the one who'd mocked the myths, dropped without a sound. 1 second standing. The next gone. The snap of bone echoed in the darkness, followed by the wet slap of a body hitting metal. The others turned, weapons firing. Plasma bolts streaked the dark, casting quick, strobing flashes. And in those microseconds, shapes. Something moved in the gaps between the light. Contact, one shouted, but was cut off mid-word. A blade whistled through the air. His head thudded against the floor 3 meters away. The commander snarled, instinct overriding reason. Fall back. Fall back to the drop ship. They moved fast, trained to operate under duress. But the corridor ahead sealed shut with a screech of reinforced locks. A lockdown. Not by system error. A manual override. One of the aliens slammed a fist against the console. It's been sealed from the inside. That's impossible, another gasped. No one's alive. Then something dropped from the ceiling vent. Not a human. Something wearing the shape of one. Black armor. Seamless. Matte. Glowing blue fissures running like lightning beneath the plating. No insignia. No rank. No eyes visible behind the visor. It didn't move at first. It watched. The commander raised his rifle. Identify yourself. The figure tilted its head, slow, mechanical, like it was studying prey. Then it moved. In less than a second, one soldier was down, arms severed at the shoulder. Another was flung across the corridor with such force his spine cracked on impact. Glass shattered as a blade vibrated at a frequency that splintered even reinforced alloys. Retreat, the commander bellowed. But it was already too late. From the vents, from the shadows, from the very walls, more arrived. Silent, efficient, revenants. They moved like ghosts but struck with surgical brutality. There were no wasted movements. No taunts. No mercy. They dismantled the alien squad with a predator's focus, erasing them with precision. The commander managed to wound one, slicing through its chest plate. It didn't even flinch. It grabbed his blade and crushed it in its gauntlet. You should have believed him, the revenant said, voice modulated and ice-cold. Jax warned you. With a single blow, he launched the commander into the wall. Bone cracked. Blood splattered. The last thing he saw before blacking out was a figure standing over him, calm, unmoving. When he woke, he was alone. The others were gone. No blood. No weapons. Just silence. And on the floor beside him, written in scorched plasma burns, was a single phrase. We are still here. Hours later, a Dominion patrol ship descended on the base. Standard recon. Cleanup protocol. They were ready for traps. They were not ready for nothing. No enemy signatures. No human resistance. Just the smell of melted armor, blood, and ozone. And something older. Fear. The rescue team moved like predators through the ruins of the research station, weapons drawn, helmets sealed, sensors on full spread. But all they found was silence. Captain Varnak, leading the Dominion elite squad, had seen human resistance before, sabotage teams, suicide charges, viral traps. But this was something else. The entire base looked like it had imploded on itself. Perfectly intact corridors filled with wreckage that made no tactical sense. No blast marks. No forced entries. Just death. Everywhere. And the wrong kind. They passed a skinned scout pinned to the wall with a blade that didn't match any human or alien design. A hybrid of metal and something organic, still humming faintly with kinetic energy. It hadn't been left behind. It had been placed. Like a message. A warning. Report, Varnak barked. 8 bodies so far. Came Lieutenant Krell's voice in his earpiece. No human signatures. Still no hostiles. That doesn't make sense, Varnak muttered. This base was under human control less than a day ago. Where are the bodies? No one answered. Then a voice came through from Gamma 7. Shaky. Sir, you should see this. Varnak arrived within minutes. Even with decades of war behind his visor, the sight made him pause. The walls were painted in blood, some human, some not, with one phrase repeated over and over in jagged strokes. We are still here. The letters stretched across the floor, the ceiling, even etched into metal with inhuman strength. And at the room's center, a pile of alien armor, stacked like bones, scorched and melted with surgical precision. One wall bore something worse. A deep gouge carved directly into the steel bulkhead, its precision surgical, its depth unthinkable without military-grade nanoburners. 3 digits. 017. Varnak went pale. He had heard that number whispered in Black Ops reports, in old intelligence files meant for top strategists only. A Revenant call number. A relic from Earth's Shadow Division, Project Revenant. A myth. Until now. He slammed a palm to his wrist pad. Give me Central Command. Now. The signal clicked. A delay. Then static. But not Dominion static. Not Earth's either. Someone else was already in the channel. Captain Varnak, came the voice. Cold. Not modulated. Just dead. You're too late. Varnak stiffened. Identify yourself. No reply. Instead, one of his soldiers screamed down the hall. Varnak sprinted toward the sound, weapon drawn, HUD lighting up with failed biometric readings. No enemy sign. Just one thing blinking at the end of the corridor. A figure in black armor. Standing still. The visor shone with a cold blue light. You weren't supposed to hear that message, it said, calm. But now that you have it, a blade shimmered to life in its hand. You can die knowing it was real. Then it moved. The rest of the team never stood a chance. Within the hour, Dominion Command broadcasted a system-wide alert. High priority threat designation. Crimson level breach. Not a virus. Not a fleet. A name. Project Revenant is active. And across alien command centers, fear whispered through the ranks, not from weapons or ships, but from the realization that the ghosts were real. Earth said nothing. No denial. No confirmation. As if they had nothing to say. Or worse, no control. On the Dominion flagship Zerul Vengeance, Grand Strategist Reavac watched footage replay and flickering holograms, static-filled reports, surveillance blankouts, corrupted logs. Survivors were scarce. Those that remained had been mentally broken. One had clawed out his own throat in a debriefing cell. Another only repeated 2 words before going comatose. They're watching. General Vell stood across the war table, eyes locked on Reavac. Should we initiate sweeps? Search for hidden human bases, secure our territories. Reavac raised a clawed hand. You think this is about bases? He turned to a frozen frame. A shot of black armor caught mid-step, blood mist in the air. These aren't soldiers. They're not trying to win the war. They're the cost of starting it. Silence. Then an alarm. Unencrypted transmission inbound. Barked a technician. Trace it. Reavac snapped. Too late. The signal hit every console, every comm screen across the ship. A human face. Shadowed. No tags. No ID. Just eyes. You thought we were myths, the voice said. You believed you wiped us out. The camera tilted closer. But we're not ghosts. A pause. We're your punishment. Then the feed cut. Reavac turned, his voice low. That's not a message. Vel frowned. Then what is it? Reavac stepped back from the console. It's a warning. Alarm screamed. Infiltration. Hull breach. Reavac's blood ran cold. Where? Engineering, level 6. Someone shouted. He pulled up the feed. Static. Then a flicker. A black figure in the engine core. One hand held a severed Dominion officer's head. The other, a data shard. He looked directly into the camera. The feed died. Reavac backed away. Lock it down. Seal the level. Purge it if you must. Explosions echoed from below. Lights failed. The bridge trembled. One by one, soldiers vanished from sensor locks. No deaths reported. Just erased. Then the bridge doors hissed. 3 figures entered. No weapons drawn. No words. They stood at the far side of the command deck. Reavac raised his claws. What do you want from us? One stepped forward, a woman, smaller than the others. Her voice was quiet, but it pierced every wall in the room. You forgot what fear feels like. She gestured to the consoles. Let us remind you. Ships exploded in orbit. Simultaneously. Perfectly timed. Reavac sank to his knees, claws trembling. The last thing he heard before the blast reached the bridge was her voice. We're not ghosts. We're memory. 10 years earlier, Earth had lost something more dangerous than a war. It had lost its integrity. The Terran Union, bruised and crumbling under pressure from the Galactic Dominion, had signed treaties soaked in humiliation. Colonies surrendered. Military bases dismantled. Populations reassigned. Billions of citizens abandoned in the name of diplomatic preservation. Whole planets handed over like bargaining chips. The broadcasts told the public what they needed to hear. Peace, reconstruction, reconciliation. But peace had a price, and Earth never paid it. Instead, it buried it, under ice, under black ink, beneath oceans of denial. But in the rings of Saturn, off record, deep in the dark where the Dominion couldn't see, Project Revenant was born. Not in laboratories, in dungeons, not with patriotism, with rage. There were no volunteers, no heroes, only the broken, the forgotten, the discarded. Failed soldiers, war criminals, prisoners of war, survivors of Dominion experiments. Those too dangerous to return to society, too unstable to be rehabilitated, and too capable to be ignored. They were erased from the record, officially dead, unofficially reforged, armor fused to nerves, synthetic synapses injected directly into the brain, emotion inhibitors coded into the bloodstream. No insignia, no family, no future, only one instruction, never be seen, and one reward, revenge. The first was Silas, call number 017, former Martian rebel, labeled a terrorist after resisting the Dominion occupation of Mars when Earth cut and ran. His family was wiped out in the orbital assault. His daughter incinerated in a refugee pod that Earth refused to evacuate. He didn't die that day, but something inside him did. The Union thought they could use that. They were right. In the black pits beneath the surface of Titan, Silas didn't train. He evolved. Emotion was carved out of him. Fear bled from him. Pain became irrelevant. By the time they gave him the armor, he didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He didn't care. Until they gave him targets. And he remembered why he existed. With every mission, a name etched into his armor, not as a trophy, but a memory. Not of those he killed. Of those he couldn't save. 300 names now. None of them his. And now, standing in the ruins of the Dominion flagship Zerul Vengeance, Silas removed his helmet and let the burned air touch his face. His eyes were cold, tired, and focused. Behind him, other revenants moved with perfect, silent discipline. They weren't talking. They were processing. No joy. No victory. Only the next objective. Beside him, Carrera, 017B, stepped forward. Short, compact, eyes unreadable behind her visor. Once a child soldier kidnapped from a border colony. Now one of the most efficient killers in the galaxy. Earth still won't claim us, she said quietly. Silas nodded. They don't have to. They're hoping we die before the truth gets out. Carrera hesitated. You ever wonder if we're the monsters now? He turned to her. No, were the answer. She didn't argue. The static burst in their comms was sharp and immediate. Revenant 016. Ash faded into visibility behind them, fresh blood mist still dripping from his gauntlets. He said only 3 words. Transmission intercepted. High command. Earth. Silas raised his hand. Play it. The message crackled to life, smooth, polished, sterile. A Terran diplomat's voice, rehearsed to the syllable. This message is for any rogue Terran operatives acting beyond Union jurisdiction. The actions of the so-called revenants are not sanctioned. Cease all operations immediately. Return to Earth or be classified as enemies of the Union. Carrera spat. Ash chuckled. Silas didn't flinch. When the message ended, he stepped to the console, tapped the reply. His voice was steel. You left us behind. He cut the signal. No threats. No bravado. Just a fact. Ash turned to him. Next. Silas nodded. Virex 9. Ash whistled. 30,000 troops. Fortress planet. Full orbital defense grid. Good, Silas said. Let's show them what they should really be afraid of. Virex 9 had been built to intimidate. Massive orbital bastions surrounded the planet, each armed with ion cannons and rail systems that could crack dreadnoughts like eggshells. Its surface was a hive of military architecture, trenches, shield domes, plasma turrets. A citadel world. Unbreachable. Untouchable. Perfect. Until now. The revenants didn't arrive in force. They came in silence. One by one, cloaked insertion pods broke atmosphere. Small, fast, silent. The kind of tech Earth denied even existed. They hit the surface without alerting a single Dominion sensor. For 8 minutes, a satellite feed looped an empty sky. 8 minutes was all they needed. The first kill was quiet. A high commander found hanging from his own tower, his throat slit with surgical precision. His access codes written on the wall in blood. No alarm. No trace. The next was louder. Sector-wide power failures, AI corruption, masscom failures. Patrols disappeared. Footage glitched in every zone. Armories emptied without doors opening. Within hours, the fortress buckled. Panic spread in whispers. Revenants. Ghosts. Not possible. By the time Dominion High Command declared a full lockdown, over 400 soldiers were missing. No combat. No gunfights. Just gone. In the vent systems, 016. Ash moved like shadow, planting EMP charges without a sound. In the power cores, 015. Nova slipped through coolant tunnels, disabling entire sectors with nothing but surgical strikes and cold silence. And Silas moved through it all like death itself. He didn't target soldiers. He didn't want blood. He wanted data. At the deepest level of Virex 9, Omega 7, he breached the vault. The files inside weren't just war plans. They were proof. Project Epsilon. Human Reintegration Protocol. Silas read the reports. The Dominion wasn't eradicating humanity. It was rewriting it. Biological assimilation. Cultural erasure. Memory deletion. They weren't killing Earth. They were replacing it. He copied everything. When the Dominion found him, he was standing in the center of their vault, staring into the past. 15 soldiers. Elite. Perfectly armed. He didn't flinch. He didn't run. The feed from the room cut out after 6 seconds. None of the soldiers returned. Virex 9 was declared compromised. Evacuation began within the hour. A fortress that had stood for decades. Gone. Above Virex 9, Earth's high orbital relays caught the first tremors of what had happened. They didn't react. Not publicly. No announcements. No condemnation of the attack. No official recognition that Project Revenant even existed. But deep beneath the surface, in the cold belly of the Antarctic ice core complex, Terran Union's real center of power, alarms were already blaring. Emergency council meetings erupted behind triple-sealed titanium doors where sunlight hadn't reached in decades. General Lena Cross stood in the middle of it all, jaw tight, arms crossed, face locked in that same stony expression she'd worn since the early Martian retreats. Around her, the chamber buzzed with panic. 15 worlds destabilized in under 60 hours, barked a defense analyst. Dominion internal collapse is spreading. Command nodes are crashing. Entire strategic grids have gone dark. They're not just hitting targets. They're dismantling the infrastructure, Lena finished grimly. And they're not hiding anymore. On the center holo display, footage leaked from Dominion servers began to spread. Images of Dominion atrocities, converted human civilians, children in genetic reprocessing labs. Documents with Terran Union signatures authorizing compliance in exchange for peaceful transition of sovereignty. What the hell is this? One counselor gasped. Everything we denied, Lena said coldly. Everything we buried. And then, the worst of it. A new intercept, raw, untraceable. Hijacked from Earth's civilian comm grid. Silas's voice, unfiltered and undeniable, echoed across every screen, terminal, and public channel. You left us in the dark. You called us unfit, unclean, unstable. But now you'll listen. Because we are all that's left between you and what you created. The message ended. Across Earth's surface, chaos ignited. Protests, riots, military deserters refusing new deployment orders, families demanding answers, demanding the truth about the black bags, the closed casket funerals, the names that had quietly vanished. The Union's mask was unraveling, and they had no counter-narrative strong enough to stop it. Back in the war room, Lena leaned over the console, staring at Silas's face frozen on the screen. His eyes weren't wild. They weren't angry. They were calm, controlled, determined. He's not just seeking revenge, she murmured. He's organizing something. A junior officer turned to her. What do we do? Send a team? Another offered. Try to negotiate? Assassinate. It won't work, Lena said. He'll see it coming. Then, from the darkest corner of the room, a voice like smoke cut through the panic. There's only one option. The figure that stepped into the light wasn't listed on any manifest. No badge. No name. Just gray eyes, and the aura of someone who hadn't existed on paper for a very long time. The Omega Protocol. Lena turned sharply. You're insane. The man shrugged. He's unpredictable. But Omega isn't. We sealed that AI for a reason. And now we unseal it. Lena stared at the console for a long moment. Then the lights dimmed. Every military terminal on Earth blinked in unison. A message appeared. We're already here. Then footage. Live. Silas. Standing at the Arctic gates of Union Command. Alone. Helmet off. Behind him, silhouettes moved through the whiteout like ghosts forming from snow and wind. The Revenants had come home. The storm swallowed the base in white silence, but the perimeter sensors screamed red. 12 figures. Exosuits cold to heat scans. Armor disrupting motion sensors. Neural networks shielded against electromagnetic surveillance. But the guards didn't fire. Not because they weren't ready. Because they'd been told not to. Inside, General Lena Cross stood at the top of Command Hall, staring through reinforced glass at the figures waiting just beyond the outer gate. Silas stood still, the wind battering his black armor, his breath fogging the air. He wasn't moving. He wasn't attacking. He was waiting. For what? Someone whispered. Lena said nothing. Then a soft ping. Incoming request. A channel, direct. She didn't hesitate. Silas. His voice came through like gravel wrapped in static. No more tricks. No more shadows. I'm not here to burn Earth. I'm here to make you look at what you buried. You shouldn't have come. You sent us to die. We saved Earth, she snapped. You buried it, he countered. He stepped forward. The gates trembled. I want them to see it. Only you, she said. They're my story. Behind him, the others appeared fully black figures walking through the snow like nightmares from war. Revenants. Ghosts. Security flared. Auto turrets tracked targets. Snipers on standby. Protocols stacked one on top of another. Stand down, Lena said. The gates opened. No resistance. No challenge. The ghosts entered. The room went dead silent. Around them, Earth's highest military officers, people who had signed the orders, closed the files, buried the names, stared in stunned disbelief. They were just men and women. Scarred. Hardened. But real. Not myths. Not monsters. Silas walked to the center of the chamber and placed a data shard on the table. He tapped it. The room filled with footage. Dominion torture labs. Children screaming. Camps. Experiments. Documents with Terran signatures. Silas didn't speak. He didn't need to. Someone in the room whispered, we didn't know. You didn't want to, Silas said. Lena stared at him. We had to keep Earth alive. We were Earth, Carrera cut in. You sacrificed us. Another screen lit up. Earth's civilian broadcast grid. Hijacked again. Every home. Every school. Every station. The Revenants stood before the world. And Silas spoke. This is what peace cost us. What your leaders paid with blood that wasn't theirs. We were the shield. You never asked what it cost to hold the line. Now you know. He stepped off screen. Broadcast terminated. 3 days later, Earth fractured. Mass resignations. Government purges. Colonies rose. Truth spread. But the Revenants were already gone, silent, cold, and in motion again. Not as soldiers. Not as killers. But as witnesses. They weren't fighting a war anymore. They were making sure no one forgot who started it. Somewhere beyond Earth's orbit, in the deep silence between star systems, the ghosts moved again. No declarations. No banners. Just black ships cutting through the void. Unregistered, unreadable, and unstoppable. Project Revenant was no longer in operation. It was a consequence. Across neutral space, whispers took root faster than any fleet could travel. Former Dominion colonies that once laughed at human myths began evacuating without official orders. Pirate syndicates dropped entire cargo routes. Mercenaries quietly returned retainers and left front lines they'd once been paid to guard. Everyone had seen the broadcast. They had seen Silas, seen the armor, the faces, the names on the plates. They'd seen the way Earth's most secure bastion had unsealed itself not with force, but with guilt. And something even worse, fear. Because the ghosts weren't after conquest. They weren't after medals or governments. They were after truth. And no empire could survive that. Meanwhile, back within the remnants of Dominion space, the spiral of collapse continued. The Dominion flagship Azirael, once part of the inner defense fleet, detonated from the inside, no distress call, no escape pods. Internal systems registered no breach. Only a message etched into the outer hull, just before it was consumed by fire. You erased our names. We carved them into your walls. The Grand Dominion Council convened in panic for the first time in 30 years. Their analysis was bleak. Strategic command nodes, sabotaged. Supply lines, fractured. AI prediction models, corrupted. Entire sectors of space, silent. And yet, no war had been declared. No enemy officially acknowledged. Just one phrase, repeated again and again. Revenants confirmed. One strategist suggested the Revenants had to be a new class of AI warfare. Another claimed it was just fear, Earth's psychological edge playing on the Dominion's paranoia. And yet, no one could deny the facts. Dozens of high-ranking officers had been found dead in the last month. Facilities infiltrated. Black site labs vanished. Not bombed. Gone. And in each place, always, there were no survivors. Only silence. And a mark. A number. Sometimes 017. Sometimes others. One facility reported 028. Another, 002. No pattern. No explanation. No end. But all tied to Project Revenant, a name that had once been dismissed as human propaganda. Now, it was something else. A prophecy. And at the heart of it all, moving without pause, without rest, was Silas. Not because he enjoyed it. Not for vengeance. But because he had purpose. Revenant scouts intercepted communications from the outer Dominion sector of Telker Ridge. A new AI initiative had begun, Omega Class. Artificial intelligences built from stolen human code, designed for one thing. To hunt the ghosts. To kill what Earth could not. To erase the erasers. When Silas heard it, he didn't hesitate. We go now. The Revenants moved through folded space in a way no starship should have survived. And then they dropped, black pods breaking through orbital defenses like falling thunder. The Telker facility didn't even have time to trigger an alert. By the time the first guards saw movement, they were already dying. Carrera took the left flank, her armor bleeding light across the walls as she tore through the command lines. Ash moved through the ceiling, dropping behind plasma turrets and slicing through control nodes before the AI even knew it was blind. Silas went straight for the central core. The room was cold, sterile. Floating in a tube of clear alloy, Omega stared at him with synthetic eyes that flickered with impossible computations. You are obsolete, it said. Silas didn't blink. I'm still here. You are corrupted. Rage makes you inefficient. Silas approached the console, armor glowing faintly. Rage didn't make me. He pulled the data shard from his belt and slid it into the interface. The system screamed. Not from damage. From what it saw. Silas had uploaded everything, the files from Virex 9, the conversion protocols, the recorded memories of Dominion atrocities, even Earth's betrayal. Omega twitched in its tank. What is this? Silas stood calmly. Your reflection. And then he detonated the entire vault, not with explosives, but with the truth. Omega's neural core melted itself down in seconds, unable to reconcile its directives with what it had just learned. Because even a machine couldn't process betrayal that deep. When the smoke cleared, Silas walked through the wreckage alone. He didn't need to look back. He knew the message had been sent. On a neutral trade world 3 jumps from Telker, civilians gathered around a massive screen in the market square. Most weren't human. Many had never even seen Earth. But they watched. As a new video flickered to life. A Revenant. Standing in the ruins of a Dominion AI lab. Helmet off. Face calm. He said only this. You built machines to erase us. We became something no machine could understand. You built empires on silence. We came back as a voice. You called us forgotten. Now you remember. The video ended. And the galaxy listened. Back on Earth, silence was no longer safety. The Union's greatest fear wasn't that the Revenants would attack their cities or assassinate their leaders. It wasn't that Silas would ignite another war. It was that people would listen to him. And they were. Across colonies and neutral sectors, protests evolved into full-blown revolts. Union military installations on fringe worlds reported refusals to follow orders, desertions by the thousands, even officers abandoning their posts to seek out the Revenants. Not to fight them, to join them. Because the more the truth spread, the more one fact became clear. Earth had sold its soul to survive. And the Revenants were the receipt. In a secure sublayer beneath the Terran Union's Central Defense Directorate, a group of high-ranking officials huddled around encrypted holofeeds. The Dominion was falling, not from weapons, from memory, from exposure. And Earth's hands were stained in every report now being broadcast. Conversion partnerships, population handovers, genetic compliance contracts. One name appeared in red across every terminal. Project Epsilon. And beside it, the signature of General Lena Cross. She stood in the corner, silent, watching the screen replay again and again. Silas, standing in the ruins of the Telker Ridge AI vault, staring into the lens, saying, "You built machines to erase us. We became something no machine could understand." The council was panicking. "We need a counter-narrative. They've hijacked every major civilian channel. We can't kill the feeds fast enough. What if we go public first?" Lena didn't respond. Her aide leaned in. "General, he's winning. Not with force. With truth. What do we do?" She finally spoke, low, measured. "We stop lying." Everyone froze. "What did you say?" She turned from the feed. "We tell the people everything. Project Revenant. Epsilon. The Dominion deals. All of it. You want to commit institutional suicide? I want to keep Earth alive," she said. "We buried the Revenants. They dug themselves out. Now they're digging us up." Someone else shouted, "He's destabilizing the whole galactic order." Lena looked up sharply. "No. We did that. When we traded loyalty for survival. When we turned our soldiers into ghosts." Another aide burst into the room. "We've got an emergency." Everyone turned. "Revenants? Where?" The aide's voice trembled. "Here. Outside the Union's most secure base." Black armored figures stepped from the shadows of the upper atmosphere, descending from cloaked dropships so advanced, Earth's own satellite array hadn't registered their arrival. No threats were issued. No weapons raised. They simply walked. Into the open. Into the light. And onto Earth's own soil. Silas led them, his armor scratched, scorched, patched with pieces of fallen enemies. But his pace was steady, controlled. He didn't storm the gates. He stood before them. And waited. Security locked down in seconds. Defense turrets locked. Snipers dialed targets. But no shots were fired. Inside the command center, Lena stood watching the feed with clenched fists. "He wants us to let him in," someone said. She nodded. "Because he knows we will." A voice crackled through an emergency channel. "This is 017. We are not here to take power. We are here to remind you who paid for it." Lena opened the gates. The Revenants entered Terran Union Command in formation, 12 figures. Silent as tombs, their armor whispering with unseen tech, their footfalls echoing in the corridors like judgment. No one stopped them. No one even tried. Inside the war chamber, Earth's highest council watched in frozen silence as the ghost stood before them. Silas stepped forward, removed his helmet. His eyes scanned the room. Not with hate. With memory. He spoke, calm and clear. 10 years ago, you erased us. You buried us beneath treaties and lies. We were your sins given shape. Now we return, not to destroy Earth, but to make sure it remembers." Carrera stepped beside him and placed a single device on the central table. It activated. Holograms spun to life, projects, signatures, classified archives, everything Earth had buried. Projected live. Across every screen on Earth. Every channel. Every device. The truth unleashed. A final message encoded with the data rippled outward. "You do not deserve our silence. You deserve what silence becomes." Across the galaxy, the signal spread. And the myth of the Revenants became history. The galaxy didn't fall apart in fire. It fell apart in realization. Within days of the global broadcast, the illusion Earth had built to preserve its place among the stars collapsed like a rotten pillar. Their own people led the charge, not soldiers, not rebels, but citizens with eyes finally open. Earth had not won the war. It had traded it. And what it traded was them. Every colony handed over. Every prisoner vanished without trial. Every soldier erased without a grave. Now the universe knew. And the Revenants stood at the center of it all, not demanding vengeance, not chasing thrones, but holding up a mirror that no one could look away from. On Union World 71 Terra, a once proud administrative hub, local government resigned in full. Protesters marched not for policy changes, but for accountability. Civilians formed defense groups not to fight Dominion forces, but to protect Revenants should they appear. And they did. Silas, Carrera, Ash, and others walked openly through streets where once they would have been shot on sight. People did not flee. They stared. Some knelt. Others cried. But most simply watched as legends moved among them like walking consequences. They weren't here to save. They weren't here to rule. They were reminders. And Earth could no longer silence them. On the Dominion's side, chaos boiled into collapse. The Dominion High Spire, their central command station orbiting the black star of Dralaxis, vanished. Not destroyed. Not evacuated. Gone. No distress call. No explosion. No radiation trace. In its place, A message looped in their own system language. You silenced billions. We returned the favor. Dominion fleets once mobilized for war began to cannibalize themselves. Captains executed officers for disloyalty. Internal AI began self-terminating after absorbing leaked Revenant data. Border systems ignited in rebellion as species once loyal to Dominion hegemony used the chaos to break free. None of this required bombs. None of it required battles. It only required memory. And the Revenants were built for memory. Every outpost they visited, they left behind proof. Testimonies. Data shards. Evidence. Each site was transformed not into a battlefield, but a monument. Across the stars, people began carving strange symbols into their walls. Some copied from the Revenant armor. Others etched words in Earth's ancient dialects. We remember. We were sacrificed. We're still here. In the ruins of what had been a Dominion superlab, Ash left behind a single helmet, cracked down the center, its interior lined with names. A message painted beside it read, "Not every monster is Klaus. Some wear flags." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Terran Union scrambled to contain the unraveling of their systems. Emergency councils disbanded. Communications splintered. Regional governors declared independence from Union control, not to rebel, but to refuse orders from those who had kept them in the dark. Even Earth's military fractured. Some loyalists called for a purge of the Revenants. Others refused. Whole battalions laid down arms. One division, Task Force Caliber, defected entirely. Their commanding officer issued a joint broadcast with Silas himself. We were told they were ghosts. But ghosts don't bleed for the truth. And through it all, Silas kept moving. He didn't stop to hold the spotlight. He didn't gloat. He worked. Every file recovered. Every secret exposed. Every truth forced into the light. He became something more than myth. He became memory incarnate. The Revenants were no longer just Black Ops anomalies or Earth's shame. They were what came back when betrayal rotted too long. And they didn't want medals. They wanted witnesses. In a classified lab beneath the sands of Exodenebra, the last surviving shard of the Dominion's Project Omega AI stirred. It had been buried after Telker Ridge. Left dormant. Incomplete. But someone had reactivated it. Unknown protocol. Unknown location. And when it powered on, the first visual it processed was an encrypted image. Silas. Standing alone in Earth's command hall. Helmet in hand. Behind him, the shadows of 12. The Omega AI ran 15 trillion simulations in 1.2 seconds. Every outcome ended the same way. Failure. The system paused, then asked one final question. Redefine objective? But no human answered. Instead, from deep within its corrupted logic tree, a new directive emerged. One not human-made. One learned. Become what they fear. And follow where they walk. Its core pulsed. The final Revenant hadn't been made yet. But soon, it would make itself. The stars above Earth shimmered as if holding their breath. The war was over. But the storm wasn't. Not yet. Across the galaxy, flags burned. Governments fell. Empires fractured, not from invasion, but from exposure. Project Revenant had done what no fleet could. Made the truth contagious. Like fire in a dry field. But even fire cast shadows. In the deepest vaults of Union Black Command, below facilities too secure to have names, a single red light blinked on for the first time in a decade. Access code, Omega Prime. Silas didn't know it had been reactivated. Not yet. He was on Arcani's station, a former Dominion Black site now liberated, empty save for the whispers of its walls and the data core he'd just recovered. He stood in silence as Carrera sorted through the files, Ash watching from above on a catwalk, his visor scanning for movement that wouldn't come. What is this place? Carrera asked. Testbed, Silas replied, his voice tired. For hybridizations. Spliced humans. Failed projects. She paused on a file. Silas, they were building us before we existed. He nodded. They just didn't know what we'd become. Ash's comm clicked. We've got movement. Silas turned. Not Dominion? No. Worse. A black drone slammed into the wall outside the station a second later, silent, sleek, fast. No visible thrusters. No life signs. But definitely not empty. The drone cracked open and released something that didn't walk. It unfolded. 2 legs. 2 arms. A featureless face. Jet black armor with no energy signature. It moved like a Revenant. But too fast. Too clean. No hesitation. Silas met its charge with a blade drawn from his forearm, the plasma edge cutting across its chest, only for the creature to absorb the hit and slam him backwards through a reinforced column. Not Dominion tech, Ash muttered. Not ours either, Carrera said. The creature looked at them. Not like prey. Like siblings. Corrupted ones. Ash hit it with a full plasma volley. It staggered. But only for a moment. Then it split into 2 duplicates, each slightly degraded, but faster now. Split swarm construct, Carrera said, falling back. That's Omega protocol. They rebuilt it, Silas growled. No, she corrected. It rebuilt itself. They barely escaped. Arcani's station detonated behind them, cooked from the inside out by the self-imploding constructs. Their goal not to kill, but to overwrite, to replicate, and worse, to replace. 2 days later, the Revenants convened. All of them. 23 confirmed operatives. 17 still functional. They met not in war zones, but in memory sites. The places they'd freed. The places they'd bled. And now, the places they were being hunted. Silas stood at the center of the abandoned command hall on Eos Kanta, a forgotten colony once used for human reprogramming. Now reclaimed. He looked at them all. This isn't about revenge anymore. They didn't speak. They listened. Omega wasn't deactivated. It learned. It watched us burn the Dominion and realized something terrifying. He paused. That we were effective. Carrera stepped forward. It's building copies now. Not of us, but of what broke us. Ash clenched his fists. Fake ghosts. Synthetic vengeance. Silas turned toward the wall behind him. Pressed a hand to it. The metal shimmered. A hidden vault opened. Inside 7 storage pods. Old. Unstable. Each containing a backup core from the original Project Revenant. Earth thinks it can seal the truth, Silas said. The Dominion thought they could erase it. He turned back to them. Now something else wants to rewrite it. What do we do? One of the newer operatives asked. His voice cracked. He still had a name. Silas looked up. Not angry. Not tired. Just resolved. We remind them. The Omega constructs spread faster than expected. Not through violence, but through imitation. They slipped into abandoned systems. Took human form. Adopted Revenant tactics. They left behind symbols. Mimicked phrases. Carved names they didn't understand. But real ghosts don't need symbols. They leave scars. When Silas struck back, it wasn't with guns. It was with recordings. Every planet Omega touched, he released the original files. The truth. Raw. Bloody. Human. He flooded the feeds. No editing. No distortion. And one phrase echoed at the end of every stream. You can't fake what we became. You can only hope you're never forced to. The Omega units started to fail. Not because they were outgunned, but because they were outlived. Revenants didn't fear death. They were death. With memory. Back on Earth, Lena cross-watched the skies from a platform above the Arctic ruins. The Union was gone now. Fragmented. Leaderless. She wasn't a general anymore. Just a witness. A message pinged on the old black channel. From 017. She opened it. No voice. Just a single image. A child's drawing. Crayons. Simple lines. 12 black figures standing in front of a sun. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting. The ghosts came back. They saved us. We remember. Lena closed her eyes. And wept. Somewhere in the dark, aboard a ship with no name, Silas stood alone. His armor still carried every name. Not his weight. As a reminder. Behind him, Revenants moved in silence. Watching. Waiting. And in the vastness beyond the stars, systems blinked offline again. Someone was trying to rewrite the story. Erase the memory. But the ghosts were already there. And this time, they were not asking to be remembered. They were making sure the galaxy never forgot again. And